Thank you. Let's get started. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Alderman Ashour,
Here.
Alderman Berry,
Here.
Alderman Bevere is not here this evening, Alderman Davalos,
Here.
Alderman Goodman,
Here, and here is Alderman Verveer.
Alderman Bevere is here. Alderman Hoffman is absent this evening, Alderman Widener,
Here.
and Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Thank you. Will those who are able join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now's the time that we set aside for citizens' comments. I don't have anyone signed up to make a comment today, but if anyone has a comment on the business of the meeting as we go along through the meeting, please raise your hand and let us know, and you'll be recognized. Next is officials and staff comments, and we're going to start with the Chief of Police.
Thank you, Chairman. We're here tonight to honor some special people, and I'm going to ask that they please come up and join me so that we can recognize their efforts. In 2017, the city of Warrenville again received a national award presented by National Association of Town Watch for our annual National Night Out program. We have a much nicer plaque, which is at the police department. But in any event, I wanted to identify and thank some key players that put in countless hours organizing this event. We'll probably start up with this again in the next month or so, that we start laying the groundwork and getting all the pieces in place. So anyway, just to introduce these key people here that we would not be able to do this without. From the Park District, we have Ms. Ruth Brackman. And from North Star Credit Union, we have Ms. Tracy Hegland. And we have from Target, Mr. David Wilkinson. Who is he here tonight? He's here with us in spirit. But they're three of our main sponsors, along with Community Service Officer Josh Perry and Sergeant Chris Maxwell. And again, the amount of time that they spend then putting this event together is really a tremendous amount of time and a lot of dedication, and we would not be able to do it without these key people. So again, my thanks to you, and I know the city thanks you. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's a great event. Next, we'll go to the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just two things tonight. I understand that it's Alderman Bevere's birthday today, so I want to wish him a happy birthday, many more. And it's Alderman Berry's birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday to both of you.
Order here.
Yeah.
And I'm not having any more birthdays. That's it. We're done.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other officials and staff comments? All right, I have one. District 200 has been placed on the AP District Honor Roll for an increase of their students that are enrolled in AP classes while maintaining the same percentage of passing scores of 3 to 5. We're very proud of the college preparation that our school district offers, and it's nice to see them acknowledged. I think only about 400 school districts in the country were given this particular honor, so that's very nice to see. All right, if there aren't any more officials and staff comments, we'll get started with the business of the meeting. Item number 1, consideration of the fiscal year 2019 Tourism and Arts Commission Hotel Motel Tax Grant recommendations. We'll go to Assistant City Administrator White.
Thank you. It's hard to believe it's been a year since we were last here with the Tourism and Arts grants, but here we are. Our Tourism and Arts Chair, Mike Ramig, is here tonight, so I'm actually going to have him do the presentation and explanation of the grants.
thank you all for having us here tonight, and hope you're all enjoying our spring in January, huh? That's it. Crazy, isn't it? In any case, Tourism and Arts Committee is pleased to present a recommendation of the fiscal year 2018 Hotel Motel Tax Grant Program. This year we had 16 applications submitted by the deadline, and that's 5 more than last year, so we were very happy to have more applicants submitted and more applicants to consider and review during our meetings. A total of 129,000, which is significantly more than requested for the total of last year. So again, we're getting more, and we're certainly pleased to review those and go through them. The TAC reviewed all the applications during October and December meetings to make sure that they complied and to make sure that the grants were in order with the Tourism and Arts Committee setup. So we have a memo before you that provides a breakdown of each application and by fund on pages 2 and 3. So again, you understand that none of the categories get more than 50%, and we have a summary of the requests on page 4 and 5. And I'm assuming all of you have a copy of the memo. Thank you. The largest of the grants, once again, was the Warrenville and Bloom for $27,812, provided by the Art on the Prairie for $14,689. Concerts in Common, which again this year they were able to actually do an entire season. Last year, if you recall, they were not able to do that because of some of the construction they had going on. But this year they were able to do that, and we recommend that they be funded as well. We had 6 new applications this year. So like I said, we were very excited to see these applications. The Albright Traveling Exhibit, the Cemetery Walk, the Trio Ellis Mariachi Event, the Tuesday Afternoon Entertainment, the Fairy Forest Garden, and the VFW Healing Field of Flags. So we were very glad to see those applications, and we certainly reviewed those for compliance. We decided that after careful consideration, that 3 out of the 6 would be funded. There were some deliberations that went on, and we had to really consider hard based on the budget that we had of $100,000, seeing as how the totals were way beyond, almost $30,000 beyond our budget, and we just had to figure out what qualified and what didn't based on the applications that were submitted. We had a unanimous recommendation by the Tourism and Arts Committee on January 11th meeting, and we have the proposal before you. If I have any questions I can answer, I'd certainly be willing to do that.
I want to thank you and your committee for your hard work on this. I know it's a lot of very detailed, poring over different pieces of the applications, follow up on all the various applications. And I can remember when I was younger, the city council spending hours and hours arguing over all of this. And then when we moved it over to TAC, that was such a relief. And we really appreciate you guys putting in the effort on this. And your volunteerism and your community spirit is very appreciated.
Thank you very much. And it really is a team effort as represented by the group that has shown up tonight to support. So thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Yes, Alderman Berry.
Well, I just too have a comment because I'm the liaison from the City Council to the Tourism and Arts Commission. And it's a pleasure working with these people because they are very dedicated in what they do. Mike runs a tight ship and he gets all his numbers organized, and it's very easy to understand once we plot it all out. And it takes time, and we have to really look over these to make sure that we're not giving money to something that really they shouldn't have, believe it or not. And because we want to be able to give money to as many people that apply as possible. So that's why they look into everything into such detail. So thanks to everyone on the committee. It's a pleasure working with you, and I really do enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Berry. We feel the same about you. Thank you.
Alderman Davalos.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I enjoyed reading about this so much when I was reading the packet because it's such an overview of what we do here, and so much of this would never be possible because it couldn't get funded, certainly from tax dollars like this. I mean, these are tax dollars, but I'm talking about regular general fund money, and it's such a variety of things. It's some of the most interesting and fun things that we do in our community, and just to see that there's a way to keep some of this stuff going. And I was particularly struck by this traveling exhibit for the Albrights at this Historical Society, and I was sharing earlier that I was down at the Art Institute, and they had taken at least all the Albrights that I know they have, they may have more, and put them all together in one room. I don't know for how long they're going to do that, but it was really fun to see this Warrenville painter all put together, and it really made an impact. And then I'm looking at this traveling exhibit, and I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing, the kind of publicity that we're getting. So I just appreciate you guys considering all kinds of things that come your way, because I think there's some exciting things going on this year. Thank you.
Again, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the 3 new projects and give a plug for people who are listening who don't know that these things are coming?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So the projects that, the 3 new projects, I'm sorry, you're referring to the 3 that we just put into place? Okay. So the Albright, as Alderman Diabolos was referring to, the Albright traveling exhibit, the cemetery walk, and in particular the VFW Healing Field of Flags. These are going to be really terrific events. The cemetery walk actually I think is pretty near and dear to Alderman Berry's heart. It's something that we really thought was very interesting. We thought would draw, in a lot of people to review and actually see and really show homage to the people who have gone before us and what they've contributed to the community and things like that. So, that kind of thing really does kind of almost gives you chills and makes you feel like, wow, what a terrific event. The traveling exhibit, as you indicated, again, a great, and then, really save the best for last, in my opinion, the Healing Fields of Flags, again, giving honor to our soldiers and things like that have gone before us and made this nation the terrific nation that it really is. It was a very great honor to look at some of those things and say, wow, we have an opportunity here to review and see what we can contribute as a group, as a community, through the tax dollars to make these exhibits happen. So we're very excited.
All right, great. And most of the other items that are on these lists, the walking tour, the concerts on the Commons, the Art on the Prairie, these are events that people in our community have already had the opportunity to experience and are a little bit more familiar with and will expect.
Sure.
And are happy that they're being funded again because they've been very successful events in the past. Yes, Alderman Berry.
I do have one comment. The WAA Big Hit Tournament, they had kind of, WAA and the WGSA actually had kind of fallen away from tourism and arts grants. They didn't make their applications in the last couple years, and they made the WAA made a very concerted effort to go ahead and put their application in this year, and we're very happy that they have come back and have wanted to request money from the city to make these tournaments a great thing. It's for 9 to 14-year-old baseball tournaments. So it's something good to have in the city. So I appreciate the WAA coming forward again.
Alderman Widener.
Yes, with much appreciation to the Tourism and Arts Commission, I make a motion to recommend the City Council accept the Tourism and Arts Commission's recommendations and award $99,927 in hotel and motel tax grant funding to various applicants per the Tourism and Arts Commission recommendation memo dated January 16th, 2017?
Second.
18.
Oh.
I thought it should. Okay. It should be 18, 2018.
Right.
Motioner and the seconder agree to that amendment?
Yes.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to all the organizations in our community that are using these grant funds to produce such wonderful experiences and opportunities and events in Warrenville. All right, moving on to item number 2, consideration of the Historical Society request for Director-Curator funding. Again, we'll go to Assistant City Administrator White.
Thank you. For the last several years, the City Council has approved $15,000 in funding from the Hotel Motel Tax Fund to help to fund the Historical Society's curator director position. So this year they have requested again the $15,000 to help fund that position. And Sarah Phelan, who is the current museum director, is here this evening as well to answer any questions.
All right, Director Phelan, would you like to come to the podium? I don't know if you have a little spiel or if you just want to be available to answer questions.
I'm happy to answer any questions, but again, want to thank the council for the past year's support, as well as the TAC and supporting our events, including this new Albright traveling exhibit, which just thank you, Alderman Davalos. We are very excited about it and really hope that it'll help bring more people to the Historical Museum and raise that awareness about the Albrights growing up here and really coming into their own as artists in our own community, which is wonderful.
Thank you. Any questions for the director or for staff? I just want to thank you for your hard work and keeping Warrenville history alive. And I think, the celebrations for this past year with the 50th anniversary were wonderful examples of, what good events people in the Historical Society put together for our community. The debating incorporation was so well attended, and the other events that happened over the course of the year. And I know this year with the Illinois Bicentennial, we have some additional events we're going to link with that, and the walking tour is going to connect to that, and that sounds very exciting. It's not every year that the state turns 200, so the fact that our Historical Society is going to be able to participate in that is a good idea, too. Alderman Berry.
I would like to make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the Warrenville Historical Society's grant request in the amount of $15,000 from the Hotel Motel Tax Fund to cover the cost of their part-time museum director/curator and direct staff to include this funding in the FY 2019 budget.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care. Item number 3, consideration to rename the gazebo to the Richard M. Volkmer Kiwanis Gazebo. And I will go to Mayor David Brummel.
Thank you. You have a memo from me in front of you in your packet. You also have an email from Bill Fessler giving the rationale behind this request. Bill's with us tonight in the audience if you have any questions for him. He lays out a pretty good case that the gazebo simply would not be there without Rich's leadership in making it happen over a period of time, as well as this whole campus area. If you read his email carefully, was put together by Rich, so it seemed like a perfect fit to have the gazebo named after Rich, because it wouldn't be there without his efforts. So what I'm asking is that we sidestep, I guess, the normal policy, which would be to create a committee, because this seems to make perfect sense. I don't know who else we would name the gazebo after if we didn't do it for Rich Volkmer. So my recommendation is that we follow through with this, and again, Bill's here to support me in this effort.
Any questions or comments? Anyone have any thoughts? We do have a process in which, in theory, we're supposed to form a committee about naming things, but the motion would be to waive that process and just go ahead and name it. City Administrator.
Thank you. I promise a real quick comment. The policy that was established, I think it was in 2001 or 2002, that was approved by the council. It was recommended by 2 former aldermen. The purpose of it, when you read it and you go back to that point in time, was really about taking a place that is new or unnamed, and then somebody decides we really should name this piece of land or this building or this area, and then you form a committee and have suggestions and recommendations. It really doesn't fit this circumstance at all when there's a recommendation for a specific name that is very involved with the structure itself. As the mayor said, then you'd be going out asking for people for recommendations when it appears that the name that anticipating pending the council's approval may be in honor of former Mayor Volkmer. So that process doesn't quite fit. It may be something that we want to look at in the future for a different process, but here again, it's like a round hole in a square peg or square hole in a round peg. Anyway, it just doesn't quite fit the circumstances. So I wanted to give a little perspective on that background. It's not just setting aside a real effective policy just for this purpose. It doesn't really fit this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I think that helps us with some historical perspective. Alderman Berry.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council waive the requirement to establish a naming committee and approve the renaming of the Kiwanis Gazebo in Albright Park to the Richard M. Volkmer Kiwanis Gazebo.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Berry, second by Alderman Davalos. Any further discussion? Yes, Mayor.
Just one last thing. Thank you to Bill Fessler for bringing up this idea, which seems, again, entirely appropriate to me, and following up with a very clear and concise and history-rich memo to let us know why this. Yeah. We have to get you over to the Historical Society for an interview. Sarah? A lot of wonderful history in this email from Bill, so thank you, Bill.
And if we do go forward, do we have any idea what the timing on this might be, or is there going to be some sort of plaque unveiling, do you think?
That would seem appropriate. We did announce the intention at when we pulled up the time capsule, so perhaps at some point when the weather gets nice, we'll have a little get-together out there and have the plaque.
Okay, keep your eyes open for that. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks so much. All right, moving on to item number 4. Consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding, MOU, between the City of Warrenville and the College of DuPage Suburban Law Enforcement Academy for use of their firearms range. Chief Toronto, take it away.
Thank you. Due to the lack of neighboring police agencies that would allow us to use their indoor firearms training ranges, we've kind of been put in a quandary that the only thing that we have available to us that would be in the proximity and a reasonable cost would be the College of DuPage Homeland Security and Training Institute. In looking into that, it's a state-of-the-art facility. Their range opened, I believe, 3 years ago. It's extremely large. It holds like 50 shooting lanes. You can actually drive squad cars in and out of there to do live fire type exercises when you'd be exiting a vehicle and what have you. Not that we're going to be needing to do that. But as well as that, it allows us to use a couple of their training simulators, one that emphasizes and is basically almost a live streaming type of program that is interactive with the officer that stresses shoot, don't shoot decision making, and the other one which is de-escalation techniques that would be used by this officer. In the MOU and in the memo that I provided, there's a list of other trainings that would be provided with the agreement that we use this. And some of that has to do with attending seminars at the College of DuPage Homeland Security and Training Institute, a discount on tuition for future continuing ed classes for our officers, and the ability to have their instructors come and provide training at our agency if we deem that appropriate. The cost for this would be $95 per year per officer, and this has been reviewed by our city attorney and found to be appropriate. And in looking around, I mean, really the costs, they may seem like $100 per officer, but it's really reasonable for the amount of training time and the quality of training that we would be able to have there.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments? Alderman Wilson.
Just one question, and one use of the firearms range is 4 times per year.
That's correct.
So you set aside then and all the officers go during that one of those 4 times per year, or I'm not sure about the requirements.
Sure. What we do so that we don't pay overtime is we schedule the training when the officers are on duty. So we would basically have like 2 officers at a time going down there. We would already have a range officer down there that would be conducting the training. So we would shoot 2 at a time. And basically when they say that 4 training sessions, it'd be 4 8-hour blocks of time that we would have. We may not use it all in one day, but that's how we would be looking at utilizing that time. We may use it on different days, but it wouldn't be 4 consecutive days or only 4 dates.
Okay, so all the officers would have the opportunity to do that and at different times that you schedule?
That's
Okay.
correct. Thank you. Sure.
Yes, Alderman Weidner.
Chief, could you run down the qualifications that the officers go through and the training that they receive with their weapons? I just recall when I was involved that, every month or so you had to go in and certify yourself with a weapon, and I just wonder how things have changed and how they keep up with the use of their firearms so that they
Sure.
are highly trained.
Sure. What we basically do is we break this into 4 quarterly training sessions. We feel that spending a little bit more time is advantageous than just going for 20 minutes at a time and shooting perhaps 25 rounds and being done with it. The training that we emphasize in firearms training, like anything else, it's a perishable skill. So the vast majority of our officers practice these things because there's many things that you can do that you don't have to be on a range, but you still need that technical proficiency. Some of that has to do with dry firing, and what I mean by that is you obviously use an unloaded weapon, and you're practicing your sight alignment, you're practicing your trigger control, and you're practicing your draw from your holster, and then securing your firearm after that. In addition, when we go down there and we do shoot, obviously the firearm is the last resort of force that we want to utilize. So what we emphasize and what the council approved last year, we went to a 9mm handgun versus a .40 caliber, and we found that our qualification scores have increased dramatically, the accuracy of the officer shooting. So the big thing that we want to stress is shot placement on the targets. And then lastly, it's the weapon maintenance, how to keep that weapon in top running condition. And we have armorers at the police department that inspect those weapons semi-annually, or twice a year, excuse me. It'd be biannually or semi-annually? I always get that confused. Twice a year, how's that, okay? So we have it done twice a year to make sure that they're in top working order, and we provide the officers with the equipment to clean their firearms after they've qualified. And this goes both for the handgun and the rifle, the long gun. With the long guns, if you remember when we got those, one of the things I had asked for years ago were the red dot sighting systems. And again, that's for shot placement and accuracy under stress and if that officer were to be disabled. So all in all, the officer will probably fire during their qualification time here, probably about 250 rounds per officer. Per year, and 2 of those are state qualification courses. The state qualification course consists of 30 rounds that they have to qualify. They have to get a minimum of 75%. It is 21 rounds out of 24 have to impact the target at the 7-yard line, and then it goes to 6 rounds have to impact the target at the 15-yard line, and then 6 rounds have to impact the target at the 25-yard line. And the target used is a legal size sheet of paper that is put up on a cardboard backing holder at the range. You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Weidner.
Thanks for the explanation, Chief. Good to see that we're taking advantage of a state-of-the-art facility that's so close to our community, and the memorandum of understanding sounds like it offers a lot more than just qualifying with our weapons, with the additional training the officers will be able to accomplish. So with that, I make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Warrenville and the College of DuPage HSTI for use of the firearms range.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Widener, second by Alderman Wilson. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Let's move on to item number 5. Consideration to amend the fee for new massage business license and limit the number of authorized massage business licenses.
Thank you, Chairman. In 2017, the City Council passed an ordinance, namely City Ordinance Title III, Chapter 26, Section 2 of the Warrenville City Code. And what that did was require a business license for massage establishments. We've gone through and we've done that. Currently, we have 9 licenses that are currently issued and are held by business owners. We've had 3 licenses where they've either been denied the license or the license has gone through an administrative hearing and been revoked because of violations that we have. Of these 9, we currently have 1 that is pending an administrative hearing for possible sanction because of a violation that occurred at that establishment, and also a criminal charge at that establishment was companion with that. But in any event, we're looking to two-part with this ordinance because it was so new. And one was when the license first went into effect, we used the fees that we would use for a normal business license. And that would be $35 for the initial application fee and a $10 annual renewal. What we have found is that our investigators spend approximately 25 to 30 hours doing the background investigation on each one of these applicants. There's a tremendous amount of background work that has to be done in that in some of these licenses, people have operated under different names in different communities and maybe just changed a few things around. But we have found that in doing a lot of digging, there have been criminal charges or at best very questionable business practices. And in some of those instances, we go even on the internet and look at different sources to see what type of social media advertising they're using at their business, which again does not seem to fit the character of a business that is being well run and above board. We looked at the the salary for a police detective, which depending on the amount of time they have on the police department is about $45 to $50 an hour. And with that background taking between 25 and 30 hours to complete, we felt this was fair. It's very much on line with a liquor license background investigation that we have to do, and the liquor licenses are much more. I think the lowest level liquor license starts at about $1,300, and the highest level one for a full service establishment is over $3,000. But we felt that this was appropriate so that the city could recoup essentially the cost that it takes to go out and do the background investigation to make sure that we have a quality business owner that's going to run their business in an appropriate manner and contribute to the city and its business community. And the $100 annual renewal fee we did not feel was out of line. And it's also specified in there that if additional people are added, that we would have to charge more. In some of these massage businesses that we've had come in, they may list 5 or 6 people that are licensed massage therapists. Well, we have to run down backgrounds on each and every one of those people to make sure that what they've done in the past, we find out about if there is in fact anything. The other has to do with limiting the number of licenses specifically to 9, and this would be much like the City Council has the authority right now to limit the number of liquor licenses in the community. It doesn't mean that if somebody comes in and applies for a liquor license, they automatically get one, but they may have to appear before the City Council. You folks can answer questions if you'd like. We would do our due diligence and our background investigation, and then the council would feel that if it was appropriate, they could grant the license. They could increase the number if they wanted to, or they could decide not to do this. Now, what I did was I conducted a survey through the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association. We got one respondent to this survey. That was the village of Westmont. They limit the number of massage business licenses in their community. Currently, they have 8. This is something that's been reviewed by the city attorney, and they feel it's well within the city's jurisdiction as a home rule community to be able to do this under the council's authority. And again, this is something where I think because so few communities have looked in to doing this licensing process for massage businesses, that really Warrenville is kind of on the cutting edge in looking at regulating these businesses, which, as you all know, can be somewhat questionable at times. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Alderman Davalos.
Thank you. I was reading through, but I didn't find the answer to this. So our current 9 businesses, they have already done their initial application, so they won't be paying the $1,000. They'll just do the $100 renewal.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Alderman Wilson.
But as they change personnel, then you have to do a background check on the new personnel. Is that correct?
If they decide to add additional people onto the license, which may be a co-owner or a majority shareholder, or if they're going to have different people coming in on their license that are going to be massage therapists, then yes, there would be an increase in the fee. And the increased renewal fee includes the processing of applications that require 2 or fewer background checks. So if a current license holder added 2 or less, then that $100 renewal fee would cover it. If they come in and they're going to add 4 people, then there would be an additional $50 fee, $25 for each new person that they added on the license.
Okay, so that's the 100, not the 1,000. Okay,
That's correct.
That answers me.
Yeah,
Okay.
anybody who currently has a license right now would not have to pay $1,000. The most it would be $100 if the license remains status quo, and if they decided to add people, if there were two people or less, it would remain the same. If it'd be 2 or if it'd be more than 2, it'd be $25 for each additional person.
Alderman Widener.
When you say each additional, but I mean people come and go. The people change. So if someone leaves and they just hire someone to take that place, you still have to do the background check.
That would be correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Alderman Widener.
What triggers that then? Do the police officers go out and check to see if there's been new employees, or is it incumbent on the business owner to say, you know, I've added 2 employees left and I've hired 2 more? Do they notify you, or how does that whole background
Well,
check
it is the
thing get
responsibility of the license holder to notify us. However, to make sure that everybody's playing by the rules, we do go out on all of these and we do spot checks. Also, if you've noticed in the memo, we have a list of the 9 that are listed there and the location. The vast majority of these are solo practitioners. They either have their one person that own the operation and run it, and they are the only practicing therapists there. Or in the case of a chiropractor's office, they will have space available to, again, a solo practitioner on specific days of the week that will come in so that there would be massage therapy available to patients of the doctor at that office.
For certification, is it kind of one certification for all different styles and levels of massage therapy? Or are there different classifications?
My understanding is that to get a license through the state of Illinois as a massage therapist, you have to undergo a certain course and then pass an examination. I don't believe that there's any breakdown in like massage therapist 1, 2, or 3, anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor.
Chief, is it safe to assume these 9 businesses have been vetted, they meet all our requirements and are legitimate businesses?
The 9 that we currently have, with the exception of one that's that's in the process of having to go for an administrative license. All of these have been vetted, and they have all been inspected on several different occasions by our officers who will go in, and we have not had any complaints, and we haven't observed any violations.
So our intention to clean up this whole business has worked. Basically, we've gotten rid of a couple that have been very questionable and had violations.
I don't know if we've gotten rid of anybody other than that there were rules that they decided not to play by, and there were sanctions that were imposed.
Okay. That's sort of what I meant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this point, we can say that we've took a close look at this problem, we came up with a solution, and the solution that we came up with is efficacious, it's working.
I think we've taken a very proactive step and have been very successful. And in my conversations with chiefs from some of the neighboring communities that have these businesses, they're having lots of problems, and they're looking for ways to try and solve these problems. And I've provided a copy of our ordinance to them that they may want to use as a model.
Great, thank you, Chief.
You're very welcome.
Just to follow up on that, can you talk at all about the human trafficking implications here? I mean, we're not just talking about something nebulous. This is a real dangerous situation that people can find themselves in, and you know, the businesses that we want to have in our community are the people that are not in that position.
I believe in the ones, the businesses that we've had problems with, and again, this is speculation because, you know, it isn't proven most of the time. The people that are there when we have a criminal violation and they're taken into custody, excuse me, they won't say anything to law enforcement, but because of the conditions at these businesses, being sleeping accommodations, cooking appliances that are there, refrigerators, what have you, it seems reasonable to believe that these people are brought into this country with perhaps the promise of some type of legitimate work, and once they find themselves here, they're taken to these businesses, and this is where they're employed. They provide a roof over their head, some type of subsistence for them, and again, you know, can I say for sure? No, I can't, but it's one of those things that it would lead one to believe through a strong circumstantial basis that these people have probably been brought here with under false pretenses.
Okay, and our hope is that if other communities do adopt similar ordinances, that we can cut back on this problem.
Well, that absolutely, and what you look at too is a quality of life issue. That one spa that was closed down, that was over by Hometown Pantry, I mean, less than 100 yards away, you had a daycare center. Are these the kind of businesses that you want operating there? The other thing is that the potential for violence that goes on when you have sex acts that are being traded for money, you're going to have issues with clientele where there's going to be arguments that are going to ensue if there's going to be physical violence or what have you. And again, is this something that you want operating here?
Right, and the businesses that are able to comply with our ordinances are the ones that are the legitimate businesses that we want to have in our community.
That's correct.
Okay, Alderman Widener.
Yeah, just thanks again for your proactive stance with the development of the city code amendment, and thanks to all the officers too who are also out there, you know, investigating and enforcing, you know, this amendment. So with that, I make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the proposed amendment to Title III, Chapter 26, Section 2 of the City Code, Business License Required, increasing the application and renewal fee for massage businesses and limiting the number of massage business licenses to 9.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Widener, second by Alderman Wilson. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 6, an informational update on the Illinois Department of Transportation response regarding the safety improvements at Illinois Route 59 and Continental Drive. Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Chairman. Late last winter or early spring, a letter was composed by city staff, basically myself and Deputy Public Works Director Kugler, because of the number of accidents that occurred at the intersection of Continental Meadow Route 59. And we listed these concerns to the Illinois Department of Transportation, along with some recommendations that the city staff had, along with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. We did send them copies of all the accident reports that had occurred at that intersection, and again, a list of our concerns. And IDOT responded back to our letter and indicated some of the things that they were willing to do and some of the recommendations that they agreed with. And one was that they agreed to reduce the speed limit from 45 miles an hour, which it currently is, to 40 on Route 59, and also post warning signage to be aware for pedestrians. They indicated that this would be in the near future, but they did not give a specific timeline or date for when they would have this installed by. IDOT recommended, and the city staff concurred, that crosswalks and stop bars need to be repainted, but that this responsibility must be maintained by the municipality because IDOT does not have the funds to do this. Not only should these stop bars and crosswalks be repainted, but they've got to be maintained periodically because of the heavy amount of traffic that goes through there, so that they remain visible to the pedestrians and also to the motorists. IDOT recommended, or excuse me, did not recommend, and the city staff also agreed with this, they did not recommend the use of guardrails that would be used to funnel pedestrians to one specific location to cross, for a couple of reasons. In that human nature being what it is, not everybody's going to abide by it, regardless of what's there. And you could potentially run into a situation where somebody'd be trying to cross the street, they weren't at the crosswalk, and now they would find themselves impeded by the ability of a guardrail in their way where they could not get off the street to safety. The other issue would have to be because of snow plows that go down that street at a fairly good clip, that if these guardrails became dislodged, they could be a potential hazard if they were sent flying. IDOT conducted a study of the traffic control timing device at Route 59 Continental Drive and determined that the device functions correctly. City staff also did that after each one of these accidents and found that the traffic control device was working properly and the timing was appropriate. And IDOT, again, they concurred and they felt that it meets the standards for pedestrian to safely cross the street and will not be changing the timing. And IDOT agreed that the additional lighting along Route 59 and specifically at that intersection would be a safety improvement, but again, they indicate that there's no funds to support the project. However, IDOT did indicate that the city of Warrenville could fund the purchase, the installation, and the maintenance of additional lighting if in fact they wish to do so. And the copy of that letter is included in the backup material.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
I have a question about the recommendation to change the speed limit from 45 to 40, but that's just from Route 56 to Batavia Road.
That's correct.
How is that going to, do you really think they're going to be able to do that? I mean, it's such a small area. You're going to be 45 north of that and south. It seems like it's a little bit...
The only thing that they look at when IDOT will do a traffic study is they look at the number of accidents and they look at the speed conditions there, and then with the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control, they go on what they say is the 85th percentile. And what they look is that what is the speed that 85% of the vehicles are driving there, regardless if it's a violation or not. You know, and it's more of what do they feel that the drivers are setting the standard or setting the speed limit to be. I know it wasn't that terribly long ago, probably within the last 5 or 6 years, that up by Maple Hill, there was a lot of consternation up there about wanting to have a traffic control signal installed. And we also had IDOT come out and do a speed study up there. And they found because of the proximity of a traffic control device at Joliet Street and because of the nature and the lack of points of ingress and egress, that they would not consider lowering the speed limit. I don't know that this is that different from when you find if you go to West Chicago. I think when we were looking at this, you find about a 0.8 mile stretch, not even quite a mile, that goes from basically Washington Street south just before you hit, I don't think it's Roosevelt Road, but there's another business facility right there. And then again, it picks up, to 45 miles an hour. But in that section, there, I think, and I did this back before when this was being questioned, and I remember it stuck out in my head. I went there and I counted it, and there were 17 ingress-egress points in that 0.8 mile area where they reduced the speed limit to 35. So a number of points where you could have incidents with people, either pulling in or coming out. So I think it's a step in the right direction, and hopefully that 40 mile an hour speed limit will help, because I think in most conditions, especially at night, you overdrive. The faster you go, you're going to overdrive your headlights. And if you do get somebody there and they're in dark clothing or they're on a bike and it's not illuminated properly, the potential for an accident goes up.
Okay, so you do see benefit to it,
Yes.
and it's controllable within that span. Okay,
Yes.
that's
Yes,
all
sir.
I needed to know. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. I think the other thing, just to remember, is with that light that's going to be going in by the Amazon's facility. I think that's going to be another issue that's going to help slow the traffic down somewhat. That's going to be going north.
Yeah, so outside of the
Yeah,
Route
Duke Parkway,
56 to
yeah.
Batavia stretch.
Right.
Alderman Bevere.
On the light issue, I don't know where that'd fall under, but we should start looking at how the city could add light, street lighting to that area. And also, while that area is being looked at, I believe that Batavia and Butterfield should be looked at. If we're going to be putting townhomes over there, that intersection is so dark. And if we're going to do one intersection, I think that's about the only two in town that are really terrible. And I'd like to see that somehow start moving forward quickly.
Thank you. Yes, I had a question sort of along those lines, which is that they recommend that we repaint and put up lights. They say they don't want to spend the money on it, but does that mean we have the authority to do so on their road?
No, we don't have the authority to automatically do it, but I think if you read between the lines, we'd have to get permission from IDOT to install them. But reading between the lines, I think what they're saying is if you'll open your wallet and pay for it, we're not going to give you a problem if you want the permits to put them up.
Yes, City Administrator.
Chief is absolutely correct, but there is, I've discussed this with Phil as well, our Deputy Public Works Director. There are standards that IDOT has. If we request that, we'd have to apply. It would be all on the city's expense, but there are standards. It's not just that you put one additional light there or a couple more lights.
Correct.
They have a certain amount of standards so that the lighting at the intersection then has to be stepped down. Similar, but on a smaller scale, is what you see at Butterfield and Route 59. I believe at Batavia and Route 56 also with the new lighting that we put in. You can do it. It will cost us, unless the only case where IDOT will pay for it is where IDOT has identified something significant at an intersection where it is a state interest in their view to put that lighting in. That's very rare because they have tens of thousands of intersections across the state, and our state couldn't afford it anyway, but sorry. So that's a process. We would have to apply, we would have to have a study and then follow their regulations.
Okay, so this is something we're sort of mulling over for the future, but not something we have concrete plans to do.
All this was, my understanding was a list of our concerns. We got a response back from them. I would think the city council could certainly direct staff at some point in time if they wanted a further examination of this.
Yes, Alderman Bevere.
Yeah, I don't know if I need to make another motion, but I'd like to make a motion to have staff start to find out about these two locations, what they could do to possibly get more illumination lights.
Well, first, I think we need to know if there's a second.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alderman Bevere, second by Alderman Widener. City Administrator Coakley.
Thank you. I was writing and not catching everything. The second location, it's at Continental Meadow, and the other location was Batavia Road? And 15?
Correct, Batavia and Butterfield.
Batavia and Butterfield, okay, thank you.
Alderman Widener.
Yeah, I think it'd be appropriate maybe to consider somehow staff to, directing staff to determine a plan and a cost figure for the improvements that have been recommended by IDOT, not just the street crossing painting, but the additional improvements that they mentioned of the lighting and so forth.
I mean, I believe the motion was all about lighting and didn't mention painting.
Right, I'm just talking about, the possibility of including that, possibly altering the amendment or the motion to include the additional suggestions for appropriation of funds, or developing a second motion. I was going to ask, my question was to Alderman Bevere, who created the motion, whether or not he wanted to include both recommendations, the crossing stripes for pedestrians and also the lighting for those intersections that you mentioned. It seems like you would have, you can't have one without the other.
Alderman Bevere.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the crossing striping, but that might already be in place for Batavia Road and Butterfield. I don't know if it is or not.
Well, if we're just directing staff to look into it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll amend it to.
Okay, so the motioner and the seconder agree to that amendment to the motion.
I would just like to add, too, that if we could include this as appropriation consideration for the fiscal year 18 budget, I think that would be good as far as city staff prioritizing it and planning it.
So a decision package, ask staff to consider adding it, or as an amendment, perhaps?
I guess I defer to the city administrator to see. I think he knows what we're trying to accomplish here. Maybe he could come up with the best method to apply that.
Any thoughts, City Administrator, on how we can include this in the budget if there are going to be costs associated with it in the next year?
Whenever it's done, of course, there's going to be costs. Sorry, just clarifying my thoughts on that. Let's have the motion and the direction, and then I need to circle back with staff and even talk about how that could or couldn't fit in. We have not looked at the entire budget. Our finance director just is wrapping up the initial things to get to me. We have some budget meetings coming up where we can have some more discussion. There's a Public Works and Infrastructure Committee of the Whole meeting coming up on February 12th, where I would think we could at least get an interim comments back from the Public Works Department on possibilities with all these things and updates. I thought that the Deputy Public Works Director had told me the striping was redone recently at that intersection since the letter was sent, or it's scheduled to be done in the next year. So let's get that update too. And I think Phil can give us a little bit of background on what is involved with the lighting. It will take some study, it will take some work. We're going to need to prioritize a lot of things. We're going to have a discussion on February 5th about big developments. I've been talking about this in the weekly report recently, and big projects impacting the city across the city, and some things happening. The council sets the priorities, and we will work on whatever those high priorities are, but everything, we've got to figure out what's the high priorities and what needs to be pushed back a little bit so we can get it all done. But we will, I think we could start that discussion on the 12th of February at the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, should you approve this motion that's on the table tonight, and then start laying out when that can be done. I can't give you all the answers on that tonight.
Do you think it will be possible to get the information together so that we can consider this as part of the larger budget?
No, I don't think it's possible to get all the details that you would need to make final decisions. Thank you for clarifying. I think we can have, I mentioned as I started, we could have an initial discussion about it when we have the Public Works staff here and get a better idea where we need to go. I'm sorry, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, so
I don't know what it takes yet to get detailed information, but I believe there'll be some kind of a study. We need IDOT standards, we have to have some kind of engineering done. It will likely take several phases.
Okay, so we would just be, in this motion, getting the process going, directing staff to look into it, what would be involved and what would be necessary. That's what I said. All right, thank you. Alderman Bevere.
Just, something for John to think about. The streetscape for Butterfield Road, I don't know if the lighting could be stretched into that intersection, but I know we're talking about lighting the path all the way. That's coming up at some point. And, the path does go across that intersection there. I don't know how far they're taking it, but it was just a thought.
Yeah, I think you're correct in that there is some lighting in that area, but we'd have to take a look at how close it is to the intersection. Treasurer.
Would the decision package be FY19, not 18? You would still want it for 18?
No, I don't think so.
You'd want it for 19, right? Because it was mentioned 18. I'm just clarifying that.
All right, let's clarify that. Alderman Widener.
It was my thought that this issue has some urgency behind it, and that if we could include it in the upcoming budget, whatever steps that we can get initiated because of its urgency, we could start on it. As the administrator pointed out, that some of these steps start out with a engineering study before they move into a final phase of completion. I think this is somewhat simple in that we're talking about lighting and crosswalk painting, but I guess my impression was that because of the urgency, we could try to roll it into the upcoming budget if possible.
Would that be this would be the current budget then, 18?
No, 18/19.
I gotcha.
The new budget starts May 1st on the 2018.
Calendar year
carries
versus
through
fiscal
to-
year. I gotcha.
Yes.
Why don't we let Finance Director Dahlstrand weigh in?
All right, let me clarify this all for you if I can. The budget we are currently operating in is the fiscal 18 budget. The budget you're recommending we work on having this, try to get it into, will be the fiscal 19 budget, which takes effect May 1 of 2018 and concludes April 30th of 2019.
Thank you so much for that. Okay. All right, so is everybody clear on what the motion is? Do we need the clerk to summarize it? Have you got everything?
I'll try to summarize what I have in the motion, and then you can let me know if it needs to be amended. Alderman Bevere moved, second by Alderman Widener, to direct staff to review the installation of a traffic light at Continental and Route 59 and at Batavia Road and Route 56, and to include funding for additional recommendations from the IDOT memo regarding pedestrian safety improvements that have not already been completed, and include this with the fiscal year 19 budget.
Okay, I think traffic light is the wrong phrase.
Okay.
It's street lights.
Street light, okay.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments, questions, clarifications, amendments? All right, let's have okay, yes, Alderman Widener.
Before we leave the topic, this has nothing to do with the amendment. I just wanted to ask what the timeline might be as far as reducing the speed limit. If we could find that out, it'd be good to know.
Director Dahlstrand?
Well, as the chief pointed out in here, the IDOT indicated that they did not have a specific date and time for doing that at this point. So at this point, I say there is no date, but I can defer to the chief. Maybe he knows more than I do.
In the letter that IDOT had, it said that they ordered the sign. I don't want to speculate. I think it'd be best if I try to contact them and see if I can get more specificity, and I can get back to you on that.
Yeah, I mean, their letter was dated December 6th, and they still haven't gone up, so who knows how long it's going to take them. Administrator Coakley.
I'm just going to add, probably goes without saying, but we'll relay to the council through the weekly report, or if it's appropriate at a committee meeting, to let the public know what's going on. Just as this letter tonight, we wanted to make sure it was done in a public meeting so everybody hears we got a response, what's happening, give you a chance to do what you're doing, discuss and direct what you want to do next. But as we get more information, we can relay that to you as well.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we just woke up one morning and the signs were there. giving people notice would be great if we can manage it, but if we can't, we don't have much control over that. Over IDOT? No. Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're moving on to item number 7, consideration of staff recommended updates to the capital maintenance and replacement plan, the CMRP. Director Dahlstrand.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before you is our annual update memo for the CMRP. I will point out that there are 2 errors on the memo itself. The detail, which you do not have, but is the large asset schedules are all correct. It's just wrong in this memo. Apparently, my ability to read a calculator that day was not all that good. So under Appendix D, where it says minus 0.01%, that should be minus 4.49%. And then the bottom line where it says 0.05%, that should be 0.5%, 1/2 of 1%. Otherwise, the figures in the 2016 total column, 2017 total column, and the dollar change column are all correct.
Okay, so we're recommending that the total CMRP average annual expenditures are going to increase by about $12,000 or 0.5%.
Correct.
So the new annual average is just over $2.1 million. And since we update this every year as required by the CMRP, you don't see any need to increase any of the revenue going into the fund to make up that very small difference.
I do not at this time. I very early look at the budget, both for where we'll finish 18 and how 19 looks right now, is our expenditures will be well below this annual average, which is exactly how this was set up to occur. We knew that there would be years where our annual expenditures would go over that average. We also knew that there were years that would be under. So at this point, everything is operating as it should. Don't see any need to change anything. And with some pending gas station additions to town, the local motor fuel from that would go into this fund as well. So that would provide additional revenue at that time. So I do not see any need to change anything at this time.
Yes, and it's my understanding that some of the gubernatorial candidates have proposals about the motor fuel tax, which might change in the next year at the state level. We're not quite sure how that would affect us, and it's impossible to predict its impact on our fuel revenues if that plan was adopted, and depending upon which gubernatorial candidate says what. All right. Any questions or comments? Alderman Wilson.
No questions, but I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council accept the updates to the capital maintenance and replacement plan for 2017 per the staff memo dated January 18th, 2018, and direct staff to incorporate those adjustments into an updated CMRP document.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Wilson, second by Alderman Davalos. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item is number 8, the informational update on the administration, police, and finance fiscal year 2018 work plans. This is just an FYI item, but if any of the staff would like to comment, they certainly can, or if any aldermen have questions about the work plans here, this is the time we set aside to discuss that. All right, this is an informational only item. Yes, Alderman Davalos.
Yes, I think we've talked about this before, about the ink color, about sort of in each of the departments making it so the high priorities, let's say red and then blue and green, and because sometimes it's just the opposite, and I know it's a small point, but when you're referring back and looking at things, it'd be nice to know that everything that's high priority is one color, and then the stuff that's very important they'll try to get to, and then the stuff they probably can't. So that's just a suggestion.
Yes, I noticed that too. The administration and the finance departments did seem to use the fonts and the italics, but the police department didn't. So maybe they could make that more standard next time and italicize the new items and use the font colors. That might be nice. Yes, Assistant City Administrator White.
just wanted to say thank you for the feedback, and we are working to standardize all of the color coding and italics and fonts in the fiscal year 19 work plans. So thank you.
Good plan.
And my own comment is that it's nice to see some of these items which have been completed. But I do think that, updating the plans with the prospective information is good too. Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. Moving on to item number 9, the informational update on the administration and finance fiscal year 2018 decision packages. There was a revised Exhibit F9 distributed before the meeting began because the cost for the ERP was not visible on the page that was in the packet. So if you need that information, it's $1,102,900 at present. So any comments or questions on this item, or any staff who want to make any comments? All right, it's an informational only item. We're moving on to item G, miscellaneous. We have commendations. Chief Toronto.
There's 2 commendations here to make the committee aware of. One is a visit that we made to a young cancer patient at Northwestern Medicine. We made that visit. That was on Facebook, presented him with a T-shirt from the police department. Several officers came over there, met with him and his family on September 8th, and they sent a thank you note to us that we received a couple of weeks ago and decided to include that. And the other one is a letter from a citizen, Officer Jacob Seaman, apparently stopped them on December 24th as they were coming home from a family function, going a little bit too fast, but he didn't want to ruin the holiday spirit. So he did issue them a warning, and they were very grateful for that. And Jacob does a great job for us, as do all our officers that are very polite and very professional.
Thank you, Chief, and I hope you'll pass our appreciation on to the officers who were commended. All right, we have only one more motion that we need.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Wilson, second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.